Hey, music lovers, welcome to the channel and thank you for dropping by. And I want to talk about Kiss and their End of the Road tour, which just kicked off about a couple of weeks ago in Vancouver. And it's going to be the start of what is supposed to be a 3-year goodbye for a band that I, have come to realize that is probably the most full of shit band that has ever existed. A band that is so full of themselves they can get away with pretty much anything, always taking it to new levels, in deceiving the fans and taking their money, and proud of it too. And I'm not saying that Kiss didn't have their heyday. I mean, look, I was a major Kiss fan back in the 70s. Really was invested in Gene, Paul, and Ace and Peter as a four-piece band that really came onto the scene with something really special. You know, they were able to take comic book heroes and horror movies and pop music and roll it all into one big, great theatrical performance that just blew people away. You know, anytime you can go to a concert and see a guy dressed up like a demon, who, your parents hated because they were spitting blood and he was, spitting fire and all this stuff. It was something to behold. And it only had a few years of it being special before Kiss started to realize that they could pretty much deceive their fans to keep on making money. And it still continues to this day on this End of the Road tour, which they say is going to last 3 years. All right, but let's take a look at it here. All right, let's be honest. All right, this tour is supposed to wrap up in 2022. That's going to be 3 years from now. Do you know what 2023 is? That's 50 years since Kiss got together in 1973. So do you think that Kiss is going to go around the world and then on their 50th anniversary, they're just going to do nothing? I mean, what's going to happen on their 50th? What is Kiss 50 going to be? I mean, they got to do something. I don't know what it is. I don't pretend to know what it is. I'm just giving you something to think about as to how much of a farewell this really is. And when I say that Kiss has been deceiving fans, I know that's a very bold statement to make, but it's true. And I'm going to just go through some things here to kind of back up what I'm talking about, how Kiss has made a career out of pretty much pulling the wool over their fans' eyes and taking their money. You can probably say the first big step was Kiss Alive, their first live album that came out back in '75. Kiss was known, like I just said, for breathing fire and spitting blood and explosions and, fire shooting out of guitars and all that kind of stuff. And they were quite the band to go see live. You had to experience them live. And the problem with their first 3 studio albums is that they didn't capture the band's live sound. And so they decided to put out a double live album. Problem was, when they went back and listened to the tapes, they realized that it was a mess, that there were a lot of missed notes on guitar, vocal miscues, just things were out of whack because they were too busy doing all these cool things that I was just talking to you about. And so they had to go back and fix the album. And so for an album called Alive, there were a lot of overdubs. There were some tracks that were stripped back to the drum track. They had to rebuild the bass and the guitar and the vocals. And for many years, fans thought this was a true live album. They had no idea of the patchwork that went into it. We didn't find out about this until some documentary that VH1 did about the Alive album. And then we started to hear stuff from Eddie Kramer, the guy who was, working with the album and trying to do all this patchwork. And so that was the first time that they were deceptive. I mean, this is an album that inspired a lot of people. I mean, this was an album that I held dear. I remember my uncle gave it to me. And I listened to that album. I wore it out. I mean, just could not get enough of that album. Watching You and Rock Bottom and, Cold Gin, all those. I mean, just classic performances. Rock and Roll All Night. I mean, that's the version that we all know and love, not the studio version. We all like the supposed live version. They even amped up the audience. I mean, the audience noise on that album is not what it truly was. A lot of things about that album was fake. And it really drives home that Kiss is a live band. That's where you need to experience them, is to going to a show. You don't want to listen to them on an album. It was more about the spectacle. It was more about the spitting blood and the explosions and the fire and all that stuff. That's what it was when you went to one of their shows, and it was very exciting. But to sit down and just listen to it, that's not the way to do it. And so, as the 70s kept rolling on, the next major deception came when the band started to fall apart on the inside. The Love Gun album, which came out in 1977, was the last album to feature all 4 original members on every track. And that's something to think about there. I mean, 1977 was the last time all 4 members played on an album. After that, people started leaving. Peter Criss wasn't even on the Dynasty album. I think he was on one song. Anton Fig was playing drums, but you wouldn't know it because Peter Criss was on the album cover. He was in the credits. And we had no idea that there was somebody else playing Peter Criss's drum parts. Same for the album after that. The Unmasked album didn't feature Peter on that album, although you would thought he was on it. They had to keep selling you the lie that the original lineup was doing all these songs because they needed to support their bottom line, and their bottom line is sales. If the fans knew that Peter wasn't there, it might hurt sales. Hurt the image. After that, Peter Criss left, or they fired him, and then Ace, he wound up going away, and they did the whole Creatures of the Night album, had him on the album cover. Ace did not play on the album, although you thought he did. I know I did back in the day. Ace even did a bunch of promotional stuff, did a lot of interviews. You can go back and look at them, but he did not tour. So fans, and they couldn't, why did they do that? Because they could not let on that he was about to leave. There was some contract stuff, yeah, but the band needed to keep the image that Ace was still with them. So more deception. So as I was talking about earlier, when they were fearing that people weren't going to accept the fact that the original 4 were not Kiss and that it would hurt sales, once Ace left, you had Peter gone, you had Ace gone. People were just not as into Kiss. Kiss was hurting. The whole Creatures of the Night album and tour flopped to the point where Kiss decided we're going to take the makeup off because it just was no longer working for them. And then they actually went through a phase where they did pretty good for themselves. Once the makeup came off, they were who they were. And they started to actually sound good. And they had a really good lineup. You had Eric Carr on drums and you had Bruce Kulick on guitars. And those 2 guys are accomplished musicians. I mean, they're really good at what they do. They take their craft seriously. You know what I mean? Eric Carr, I think, is the best drummer that Kiss ever had. Peter Criss, he had a brief window of time where he, you go back and look at the videos of Peter Criss. He had a good groove and a good swing, but he was by no means a drummer's drummer. He was one of these guys that, when he was drinking and everything, and then he left Kiss, his drumming atrophied to the point where when he came back with the band in 1996, when they got back and put the makeup back on, he could barely play. He had to relearn how to play the drums. I mean, that's not what a drummer's drummer has to go through. And even Ace, he, atrophied because he didn't keep up with his playing and his alcohol got in the way. Someone like Bruce Kulick and Eric Carr, those guys were really good at what they did. They took things very seriously. And that's part of the problem and that's a whole nother video, say what you want about Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley, but they had a really good work ethic. They may have been assholes and they may have been really tough on themselves or tough on others, but they always had a really good work ethic. They didn't do drugs. They expected people to live up to their talents, and Bruce and Eric Carr had that. So they were a better fit, and they had a successful run. They actually put out some really cool stuff during that little phase that they had there in the 80s and even into the 90s too, you know, with the Revenge album and then the Carnival of Souls album. You know, we start getting into territory that didn't sound at all like the way Kiss was back in the 70s, and they could have actually gone under a different name, but of course we know that Kiss would never do anything like that because again, it gets back to it would hurt the Kiss brand, which is what Kiss is. You know, they are a brand. They're not a band. The way that they talk about themselves being, you know, the best band in the land, we're the best, and, you know, having the nerve at this point to say that we're at the top of our game and we're going to go out in our prime. I just saw this interview with Tommy Thayer where he was talking about how Kiss is in their prime. And I mean, how can you say that you're in your prime? I mean, we'll get to reasons why that's not true. But the way that Kiss talks about themselves, you know, no other band has the balls to talk like this. And it's because Kiss is really talking about themselves the way a company would talk about their product. You know, the way a company would talk about their can of juice or a box of something, you know. They have to always sell it. You know, they always have to sell it no matter what is going on, good times, bad times. They're the best and they always will be the best, and you need it because everybody else wants it and you need it too. It's like product marketing. It's not band marketing. And so once the makeup went back on again, you know, that's when the deception started to kick back in again. You know, they got back in '96, and it was a rough road to get Ace and Peter committed the way they should be. The wheels fell off. They did a farewell tour in 2001. That was a load of shit. It wasn't a true farewell tour, and they wound up saying that it was the end, but it wasn't. And the reason why it wasn't is because the fans kept wanting them back. You know, Paul and Gene didn't really know who would want Kiss after the whole thing with the original lineup fell apart. They kind of thought that, well, this is the end. Who's going to want to see us again? We're going to go back to not wearing makeup. But people kept asking them, you know, when are we going to see Kiss again? And they just saw dollar signs. Like, people still want us. Like, we just did a farewell tour and you're still going to give us money? Sure. We'll put the makeup on and we'll get Tommy Thayer and we'll get Eric Singer and they'll be the Catman and the Spaceman, and nobody gives a shit. If the fans had said, you know what, fuck this, I'm not giving you another dime, then that would have been the end of it, you know. But as with products, there's a supply and demand aspect. The fact that the fans still were willing to pay for this, the band says, all right, we'll put on a show for you. No matter who's in the band, it does not matter who's behind the makeup. It doesn't matter who's playing on the albums. This is it, you know. And I forgot to even mention the whole Sync-O-Circus album that they did when they came back in '96, and they made the whole Sync-O-Circus album with Peter and Ace, and that album even didn't feature them on it the way it did back in the '70s. Again, misrepresentation, which is common when it comes to a band like Kiss. So anyway, at this point in 2019, here's the thing. I think that the people who care about Kiss are real just fanboys. They will take Kiss no matter what's going on. They don't give a shit who's behind the makeup. They'll take anything. They'll buy anything. They're so committed to Kiss, you know. And you've got two different types of fanboys. You've got the ones that are, you know, don't have a lot of money. They have a lot of childhood memories, sink or swim Kiss. And then you've got the fanboys that have, you know, they were around back in the 70s and now they're making as much money as they've ever made. They're rich. They've got money to burn, money to hand out, and Gene will gladly take it. Paul will gladly take it. So between the poor fanboys and the rich fanboys, they've got their fans. And I'm just scratching the surface with some of the stuff. Wait till we get in. I'm going to get into the set list. I'm going to talk about what they play and what you can expect during the show. And it's also going to shed some light on other types of deception and just outrageous stuff that's going on within the KISS camp. So let's, first of all, I want to run through the types of ticket packages that you can buy to go to this circus. And because, yeah, you can go buy a concert ticket and you can expect to spend probably at least $150 to get inside. And for those types of tickets, you're going to be like pretty far away from the stage. Those are like the worst seats in the house. And then it just gets to be more expensive, probably looking at about $300 to be on the floor or right by the stage. And then there's, of course, other experiences that you can get. VIP, all right? VIP. And I'm going to take you through those now just to let you know what you get for really emptying your pockets to go see these clowns, all right? All right, so the most minimum package that you can get for VIP is $1,000. And for that, you get to meet the band at their meet and greet, and you get a photo taken with them, okay? That's what you get for $1,000. You don't even get a ticket to the show, okay? You still got to spend another, like I said, $150 to $300 plus to get a seat at this circus, okay? All right, so the next level up is going to be the Captain's Lounge VIP. You get the same thing in the whole meet and greet. You get to meet them and take a photo. And also you get access to the special VIP lounge where they serve drinks. And that's $500 more. And you still don't get a ticket, okay? All right, so the ultimate experience, this is $7,500. And you get the meet and greet, you get the photos with the band. You get to watch the show from the pit. So you actually get a seat, although it's not a sitting seat. You're actually going to be standing pretty much in between the front row and the stage, like where the bouncers are and the security are. So you're right there in front. You also get to have this backstage tour, where, as they put it, you get to step foot on holy ground. That's how they see. I'm telling you, they're full of shit. You get to stand where they stand. And you get to sit on Eric Singer's drum stool, and you get to stand in front of Paul and Gene's microphone. Like, this is just amazing. You get to hold their guitars and try on some real KISS boots. You'll be stepping in a lot of shit, a lot of bullshit, so you may need the boots. You get to look at their outfits hanging up. You probably get to look at Gene's underwear. You get to meet members of the crew, probably mere minutes before they start laughing at you once you walk out of view. You get to go to this KISS Army Hospitality Lounge, which is the Captain's Lounge that I was just talking to you about. And they got a special end-of-the-road cocktail that I'm sure you can use to try to forget the money that you just wasted on this bullshit package. And like I mentioned, who's got the money for this? If you're a fanboy, you got to be a fanboy with money to burn. The poor fanboys, the ones who don't have $7,000 to just throw at a concert for 2-3 hours, they're not even thinking about this. $7,000 for a lot of people, you got to like save for that. You got to plan for that. So this is for people who have just got money to just flat out burn. Like, $7,000? Sure, I'll do that to go walk around the holy ground that is the KISS stage, where even more deception happens. We'll get to that in just a bit. But yeah, those are the packages that you get for this, what I like to call Sync-O-Circus. And I'll tell you about that. All right, so let's talk about the set list for this show, opening night in Vancouver, or as Paul Stanley would tell the audience, Vancouver. Yeah, so the band, I'm talking about Gene and Paul and Tommy, they descend onto the stage from these platforms and they launch into Detroit Rock City. Of course, there's all kinds of explosions and everything going on. And Detroit Rock City, great track from arguably one of the best Kiss albums, the Destroyer album, the one that was produced by Bob Ezrin. And Detroit Rock City was actually the B-side to the song Beth. And we'll get to Beth a little bit later on, but always did love this tune. Then they go into Shout It Out Loud, which was also a track from the same album. And it was the first song that they had that actually topped the charts. It did that in Canada. And it was a song that they have performed live quite a bit. They didn't do it a lot during the phase where they took the makeup off. I guess it didn't really suit that era. But you can guarantee whenever they've got the makeup on, they're usually spitting this one out. Then they get into Deuce, which is from the first album. And of course, it's got the, part of the song where the three of them, Gene and Paul and Tommy, are doing the whole choreographed bit that they used to do with Ace. Always did like Deuce. And then they launch into a song from the Sonic Boom album, which was the first one that they did with Tommy Thayer and Eric Singer. And I always thought that album was just a complete load of shit. And Say Yeah is the song that they do. Awful track from that album, but probably doing it because they wanted to represent something from that album that they did with those two guys. I mean, let's face it, those two guys are helping them to take this circus around the world. They owe a lot to Eric and Tommy, especially Tommy. Tommy's really, Tommy is more than just a guitar player who is, got the Ace Spaceman makeup on. He does a lot of behind the scenes stuff for them and has been for the past 20 so years. And I look for Tommy to be involved with Kiss well into the future, even after Gene and Paul are out of the scene. Then they get into Heaven's on Fire, which is, one of their signature 80s no makeup phase tunes that they've always kind of played, whether they had the makeup on or off. It's one of those songs that works no matter how they decide to spin it. Then we get into War Machine from the Creatures of the Night album. I always did like War Machine. Real heavy track featuring Gene on vocals. And this is a song that also was co-written with Bryan Adams. Yeah, I'm talking about, Summer of '69, Cuts Like a Knife, that Bryan Adams. He actually co-wrote a Kiss song, in case you didn't know that. This is also the part in the show where Gene spits fire. You can tell something's going to happen. Something really cool is going to go down when he's walking around with the torch, a lot of smoke. And then he just, shoots a load of fire into the air. And I got to tell you, if it wasn't for Gene Simmons, there really would be nothing to see here. Gene Simmons pretty much is Kiss at this point. Eric Singer is really nothing special on drums. He's capable, but I don't think there's anything really special about his playing. There's no real spark there. Tommy Thayer is a great guitar player. He can play. Nothing really special. He plays a lot of Ace's stuff and does a lot of the things that Ace used to do. He's not really doing his own thing. Tommy is more valuable probably behind the scenes. And Paul Stanley, I was never really into what Paul brought into Kiss. And so that being said, I think Gene Simmons is really the saving grace of this band. I mean, a lot of the spectacle with this show, aside from the explosions, is Gene Simmons, doing his thing. And after this, we get into Lick It Up, which is a track that they co-wrote with Vinnie Vincent. And I did a whole video about Vinnie Vincent, in case you're wondering where he is and what he's doing. He's trying to get his career back on track, although, he's, having a very hard time doing it while in self-destruct mode. But you can check out the video for that. I'll put a link up to it. And then they do 100,000 Years, which is from the debut album, but probably most notable for its appearance on the Kiss Alive album. This is where Peter Criss did his drum solo, and it's also where Eric Singer does his drum solo on this song, and his drum rises up into the air. His whole drum set goes up in the air, and he does his solo. And then by this point, Gene, he hasn't started spitting up blood yet, but he's already just drooling. You can see the spit coming out of his mouth. I can't imagine what it must be like to clean this stage after they're done. And then we get to God of Thunder. And so Gene, once again, the way he came down, the way he descended, he goes back up. He gets on the platform, and Gene goes up into the air on this platform, and they go into God of Thunder. And, we hear, the hell's bells, and we see Gene, starting to conjure up the demon, and he starts to spit blood. And, of course, that's quite the sight. And then he gets into God of Thunder. And Gene is singing the song, but there's a video of Gene singing the verses that is not, that's a pre-recorded video. So, Kiss with a pre-recorded video doing something that's not really live, I'm shocked, But at least Gene is singing it live, as far as we know. And then we get to Cold Gin, which was a song that was the first Ace Frehley composition in Kiss. And always did love this, especially on Kiss Alive. And this is where Tommy Thayer does his guitar solo, and just like Ace, shoots fire out of his guitar and all that stuff, or shoots rockets or whatever the hell he's doing. I think that Ace did it a whole lot better. It was much more of a show when Ace did it. I try not to take things away from Tommy. I know Tommy's just doing his job, and he does an adequate job, but it's just not the same without having Ace there, really. And so next we get to Sync-O-Circus, and as I mentioned earlier, this was the album that Kiss did when they got back into the makeup in the late 90s, where they had the original four, although they all were not on this album. As a matter of fact, Tommy Thayer played the guitar on Sync-O-Circus. The album got nominated for a Grammy. It did not win. It lost out to Page and Plant, and rightfully so. But it just goes to show you more smoke and mirrors from Kiss, and how fitting that this is the song that people are pointing to for Paul Stanley doing lip syncing. Now, this is something that's been talked about. Paul Stanley was recently on some television show, America's Got Talent, I think it was, and they did Detroit Rock City or one of those songs, and he was caught lip syncing. People thought that he was singing to a track. And I just saw this video. Somebody actually took 2 dates from this current tour and played both performances side by side, and Paul's vocals are exactly the same. And so, now I'm not saying that he's lip syncing on every single song. I don't know what song he's doing it on. I have a feeling that Sync-O-Circus is one of them. He might be doing it on Love Gun and Detroit Rock City and who knows what else. But, he's doing it probably on songs that he just can no longer sing. And, I find the whole lip syncing thing to be, I've already talked about a lot of deception that Kiss has been known for. But lip syncing really is an unforgivable act there. I mean, that's a clear sign that you should be done. You should not be doing this. As much as Paul Stanley bitches and moans about how Peter Criss can't play drums and Ace Frehley can't play his guitar or whatever, what would he say about a singer that can't sing, who has to sing to a track? You expect singers like Britney Spears and Janet Jackson to not perform live, to not sing live, because they're dancing. And that's what you want. You don't want to go see Britney Spears stand in front of a microphone. You want to see her dancing and all that. That's what she does. And you don't care that she's not singing live. What's Paul's excuse? The whole spectacle with the Kiss show is the explosions, and it's really centered around Gene, like what I was saying, spitting blood, spitting fire, all that stuff. All Paul's got to do is just stand there and sing and say Vancouver. That's all he's got to do. And he can't do that. And so, that's a clear sign that you should be done. You should have closed this chapter of Kiss a while ago. But this also gets back to what I was saying. They know the fans will pay for it. and they'll go to the show and they will drop $7,500 on this ultimate package. They'll spend $1,000. They'll go buy a $300 seat. And as long as people keep doing it, they will keep performing and coming to your town. That's the way this works. Because like I said, we're talking about a product here. Okay? We're not talking about a band. I just think that it's insane that, Paul is out there lip syncing. I think that crosses the line. I don't know of any other rock band that has the balls to do that. Even David Lee Roth will go out there and sing and suck and embrace it. That album that he put out, that whole live album, Live from Tokyo, David Lee Roth handpicked that show. He wanted to put that album out. He handpicked that particular performance. He didn't go back and doctor anything. He didn't give a shit. It's awful, but he didn't care. At least he has the balls to put it out there. Paul Stanley would be tweaking that and doing all kinds of stuff, and it's just a mess. I just see this as the major deception, but, it's in keeping with where Kiss comes from. Okay, when you consider all that I've talked about, how this is a product, and just as he justified for Kiss Alive that nobody wants to hear a live album that has warts on it, it's about the live experience. And nobody cares who's in the Kiss makeup. Nobody cares that he's not singing it live. Because nobody cares. At least not enough people care. People are still spending money, and so they'll keep on doing it. And up next, we get I Love It Loud, which I remember when this song first came out in the early 80s. I was still a Kiss fan. I was still waiting for them to do something halfway decent. And when this came out, I really liked it. I mean, what I liked most about this was, Gene had a great vocal. The guitars were really great, although at the time I thought it was Ace. I wonder why I thought it was Ace. Maybe it's because he was on the album cover. I don't know. I was just a fooled fan. What can I tell you? But I love the drum sound. That's what I think is the key to this song, is the real heavy, commanding drum sound of Eric Carr. And you don't get that even now. Without that heavy drum sound anchoring it, I don't think it really does it justice live. All right, so up next is a track called Hide Your Heart, which was from the 1989 album Hot in the Shade, an album that I never cared about. And I didn't care about this era. This song blows. It's awful. But hey, who am I to say, all right? This song was covered by other artists, and their cover versions came out like right at the same time. The song came out a year earlier in 1988 on Bonnie Tyler's album of the same name. And it didn't do anything for her. I mean, at this point, Bonnie Tyler, she was searching for something to revive her career, but it never did get off the ground again. Ace Frehley, a week before this Kiss album came out, Ace Frehley put out Trouble Walking, and he did a version of it on his album. And then Molly Hatchet, yeah, I'm talking about Flirting with Disaster, Molly Hatchet, they did a version of this song on their album, Lightning Strikes Twice. Now, I don't care for any of the versions. I think that Ace's is probably best. But it's, the whole chorus and everything, it's very much a product of the hair band days. Let me just put it to you that way. I just never really cared for that song. Then we get into Let Me Go Rock and Roll from the Hotter Than Hell album. And then we get to Love Gun. And this is the part in the show where Paul Stanley, asks the audience if, they would like to invite him out there. Vancouver, I want to come see you. So he gets on the zip line and he shoots out to this stage that's at the other end of the arena, and he sings Love Gun from way out there. All right, then we get to the disco hit from 1979, I Was Made for Loving You, from the Dynasty album. And this is a song that I believe Paul is singing this live. I don't know. The version that I heard from the Vancouver show, it sounded rough. The vocals were very, very rough. And so I'm guessing that Paul was doing it live. This is also a song that Gene Simmons absolutely hates. He can't stand playing it. This is something that I just heard him in an interview say, like as of last year. So you can pretty much guess that during this part of the show, Gene's hating life and can't wait to count his money after the show. Then we get to Black Diamond, which is a great track from the debut album, and this closes out the show until we get to the encore. All right, so let's talk about the encore for the End of the Road tour. It starts off with a piano appearing on stage and Eric Singer sitting behind it and singing Beth, which is the biggest hit that Kiss has ever had. And I've heard people talking about how, well, how can Eric be singing this? This is Peter's song. It's real personal. And it really isn't a personal song for Peter. His whole role with the song has been diminished over the years. This is a song that he came up with before he even joined Kiss. He was in this other band, and his bandmate would get phone calls from his wife, like, where are you? And when am I going to see you? And when is practice going to be over? And all that. So Peter took that concept of a girlfriend or wife calling to see, when am I going to see you again and all this. And so he brought that idea into Kiss, which was further fleshed out by Bob Ezrin. Even Peter Criss's wife at that time, her name was Lydia, she changed it because the song was originally called Beck, because I think the woman at the time that the idea came for this song, I think her name was Becky, and so they used to call her Beck. I think Peter Criss's ex-wife Lydia changed it to Beth, and she even added some lines of her own. The song kind of started to get away from Peter once the idea came out. And then, of course, Bob Ezrin helped to add in the orchestration. It's actually the only Kiss song not to feature any of the members, except for Peter Criss's vocal. It's got an orchestra going, there's a piano. It's probably the most unlike Kiss, and it's kind of odd that it became their biggest hit. And it's really not a personal song. It's not like Babe by, Styx, which was Dennis DeYoung's song for his wife. It isn't like that. But yeah, Eric Singer is sitting there at a piano. He's making believe like he's playing it, but I don't think he's playing. I would be shocked if he was playing the piano, just because of the orchestration that's got to go with it. It seems like it would just be too much of a mess to have him sit there. It doesn't sound like he's playing it live. It sounds like it's exactly the same as what's on the album. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Is Eric Singer really playing the piano? I don't have any doubts that he can play the piano. It's just that I don't think he's playing it live, and it's just another trick up their sleeve. Of course, after the song is over, Gene and Paul and Tommy come out, and they kind of, they walk up to Eric while he's playing, and they surround him, and Gene puts his hand on Eric's shoulder, and it's just a real, just like, want to throw up moment. Then after that, they launch into Do You Love Me, which is a great track from the Destroyer album, and then they close out the show with Rock and Roll All Night. And of course, this is when, the confetti goes in the air and the place just looks like a party zone. And this is also when Paul Stanley decides that he's going to smash a guitar. And he's doing it because he knows he can sell it. So yeah, Paul Stanley will sell you a guitar that he smashes on stage at any of these shows. And he'll sell it to you for $6,000. And it does not include a ticket. I want to remind you that it does not get you in the door. It just helps you get out the door. You can bring up to 3 guests. You can take a photo with him probably, and he'll sign a few things for you. And $6,000. If that's not what you want, you can actually buy a guitar that he has played on stage, and that's going to cost you a little bit more, $18,500 for a guitar that he played. If you want the strap that he had on, you can pay an extra $2,500. This is crazy. Like I said, you got to be a fan with absolutely, this money to burn to say, yeah, I've got such disposable income that I'm going to just give this guy $20,000 for a guitar and a strap. Talk about milking your fans. Lip syncing through the show and then selling them a guitar for $20,000. You can also buy a microphone. The microphone that Paul didn't sing into, you can buy that for $4,000. And I wish I was making this up. He's also got guitars in his personal collection, guitars that he's played at previous times, and they start at $15,000. Like, what this guy touches is so valuable. You know what I mean? The holy ground, this is like I was talking about earlier, the holy ground that Kiss stands on. You can go get a backstage pass and go walk around there. I mean, this is, like I said, Kiss is the most full of shit band that has ever been. And this is how I started the video. And I know that some people might be like, what are you talking about? No. These guys are full of shit. And, what do you say about the fans who support this? Because without the fans buying into this and buying this stuff, it does not happen. These fans are obviously happy. They don't probably feel like they're getting screwed. And so Kiss will keep taking money. I was just talking about the guitar, the smashed guitar from opening night. It's already sold out. So somebody bought it. There's only one per show. And I'm surprised by the time we get to the end of the tour, or sometime before the end, we're probably going to see Paul breaking guitars after every song or doing something. It's crazy. But this is the way Kiss operates. They operate, like I said, they sell product. And it reminds me of this great scene in Spinal Tap, which was, probably my favorite movie. The scene where Rob Reiner has got them, and he's, talking to them, reading the reviews of their albums. And at one point, he says, in one album, the review just says, on what day did God create Spinal Tap, and couldn't he have rested on that day? And it just, I don't know, that popped in my head, because it sounds like you could also say, a review for this tour, if God gave rock and roll to Kiss, can he still take it away? And when is that going to happen? Is it going to be in 3 years, or is it going to keep on going? And I think that this just proves that Kiss will keep on going after Gene and Paul are too old to keep on doing this. Now, Paul could keep lip syncing into the future. He's got his guitars that he can break, and he's got his lip sync track. He's fine. Paul can keep on going. Gene, on the other hand, now Gene, he's got so much shit to carry. And he's going to be 70 years old this year. I just don't think that he can keep on going as much as he would like to. And so if he had to pinpoint one reason, it's probably Gene's not going to be able to keep on going. But overall, Kiss is a band that is for the experience, the live show. It's not about scrutinizing how they sound. It's not about who's even in the band. It's about going to the show, the explosions, the blood spitting, the fire breathing, zip lines, fire shooting out of guitars. That's what it's about. And the shit that they can sell you so that you can say, yeah, I was there. That's what it's about. And so if that's your thing, then get ready, because Kiss has got something for you after they're done, after after Paul and Gene are out. Kiss will be a Vegas act. They'll take a show with these guys who are dressed up like them and have all the makeup, and they will just go give these experiences around the world. And that's what's going to come many years into the future. So anyway, that's my take on the End of the Road tour. Are you going to go see this show? The show that I call the Sync-O-Circus. Are you going to go see this? Let me know. Put your comments below, and let me know, what you think about this tour. What do you think about all this shit that they're selling fans? And be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Click that subscribe button too for more videos, and be sure to check out the companion video playlist that I put together for this tour. I'll put a link up there for you. And until next time, I'll see you soon.